Looks like CullingDash is prepared with the Ancient Wars that we've seen. And we're about to get a good look at Samuel's hand. For a second I thought he was maining Oasis Snapjaw and I realized Web Spinner had happened. Spectator mode is pretty crazy sometimes, you guys. I will say that. Not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's what we're working with.
I must safeguard the land.
So I believe Samuel's on a pretty standard lineup that we've seen before. Warrior, Warlock, and Hunter. Let's see here. CullingDash is on Warrior, Warlock, and Druid. So right now we're witnessing the one change in both these players' lineups. Where Samuel has the Hunter, CullingDash has the Druid, and we might see mirror matches in the rest of the match, who knows. This Oasis Snapjaw is actually putting in a good amount of work here. It's going to be very hard to remove. Hunter definitely has the tempo at the moment. CullingDash doesn't really have too much he can do about it. Hunter's Mark looms in Samuel's hand, ready for the Ancient of War. That's still a couple turns off, though. It's debating on trading right now. I don't think it's required to trade here. It could actually be actively bad if it's Doomsayer. I think the safer play might actually be to hit face. Swipe actually seems like a very good draw here. He might opt to just play the Sludge Belcher and set himself up further for the swipe, reducing the health of some more minions. If we ignore the swipe for a second, Samuel27's hand is actually very, very strong. Did get the best 2-drop minion in the game, I would have to say. It's better than Millhouse Manastorm almost all the time. We are going to see a crazy Unleash the Hounds play. They're going to get buffed by the Leok, throw some knives with the Knife Juggler, probably kill these minions by themselves, except for the slime. Are both knives going to behave? More or less. He didn't really need to hit the Shielded Mini-Bot twice, but did wind up killing the slime. Swipe is an absolute necessity now. But, as it turns out, CullingDash does have it, and it's going to be very good. CullingDash here, drawing a Wrath. Trying to find the best way to clear the majority of the board. Unfortunately for him, after he uses the swipe, Dr. Boom's going to come down. While he has the Big Game Hunter to take care of the Boom itself, Boom bots are just going to continue to cause more damage directly to CullingDash's face. Yeah, he's thumbing over the Ancient of War like it's possibly the best play. And it would be, to be fair, it would be great against Samuel without the Dr. Boom itself. He has no real other answer to it. He could set Freezing Trap and pray CullingDash plays poorly and attacks into Freezing Trap with Ancient of War. As it stands, Boom is very strong.
I've got the beast in my sight.
Just 2 points away from dying. So technically he could be dead on board if these boom bots hit. Oh, and there's an Eaglehorn bow. It's going to seal the deal without even having to rely on the RNG. Samuel27 is going to go up in the first game. Druid takes a quick defeat to Hunter. I would say that's where Samuel's lineup is preferred, depending on the variance of Warlock and Warrior, since we have seen nothing of these players yet in the tournament. Hunter itself is favored against Druid almost all the time, depending on the build, unless it's like a dedicated taunt Druid. So I would say inherently Samuel's lineup is better in this matchup. Of course, it's completely reasonable that that one match might not matter in the grand scheme of things, and Samuel could simply lose with his other two decks, but it does give him a slight edge, I would say, coming out in the first game. CullingDash making the either the correct call or the correct random pick here, and queuing up with Druid against what looks like a Control Warrior. So I'd have to give the edge to CullingDash here, but of course anything can happen. It's Hearthstone, there's RNG, there's luck. The turn 2 Wild Growth. Definitely not what you want to see if you're Samuel. And it looks like he's actually running a... For a second I thought that was a dragon package, but I missaw his brawl. So I mean, Culling doesn't really have a play this turn. He could innervate into Sylvanas on his turn 4, but he might save it for the Ancient of Lore. Besides that, though, the Wild Growth signals good things in his future for this match. Nourish, well, channeling Life Coach a little bit. So far, Life Coach is the only person I've seen to actually play that card. And it's kind of like an innervate into the Ancient of Lore, except without the body, obviously. Oh, he chose for the mana, actually. That's interesting. Not sure. Innervate into double Wild Growth. Remains to be seen how good that is. I think I might have been inclined to just save the Innervate. Innervate out Lore the following turn. It's slower for sure, but you still have the, like, Lore's still coming down at the same time, and he'd be able to Nourish to draw cards later if he needed to. Of course, he has less mana if he does that, but either way, he can still play Sylvanas the turn after Lore. So it's interesting. Nourish is a pretty hard card to play, in my opinion. Not sure if I'd know what to do with it. And that was kind of a weird turn because Innervate didn't really like fit in perfectly with what he wanted to do. He obviously couldn't just play Sylvanas against a 3-attack minion and a 2-attack minion. Steal nothing. Samuel does have the Shield Slam, though. Shredder comes down. Hero Power comes down. Don't know if we're going to see that Wild Growth come down, though. It's already at 8 mana. No pressing need to be at 10 next turn. I'd rather save it to cycle a card later in the game. For being 3 mana ahead, it doesn't look like CullingDash is actually that far ahead. His hand doesn't contain that much action. Can take care of the Acolyte of Pain here. Develop a taunt. And that's kind of it. Not sure if he's inclined to use Mind Control tech. Of course, even warriors can sometimes accidentally play into the Mind Control tech. Here, for example, we do see a Dr. Boom. Can't be played quite yet, but in a turn it could lead to a Mind Control Tech Big Game Hunter play, potentially.
No time for games.
No reason to attack into the bear. CullingDash really did see almost all of his ramp. Actually, he saw all of it. Yeah. He did Wild Growth early, he Nourished, and he has double Innervate. With 17 cards left. And yet, even with all of that and an Ancient of Lore,
I must safeguard the land.
he's still actively fighting for the board. And it's not easy. I do think if the Dr. Boom is played next turn, it will get a lot easier for him. Because he has two very powerful swing cards. He can steal the Dr. Boom, or he can steal something else and kill the Dr. Boom. Either way wouldn't look too good for Samuel. But it's still a very obvious play, and not too many people play around mind control tech nowadays. He's not going to like crash his guys in. Of course, CullingDash doesn't actually know Boom is coming. So he is going to take the opportunity and clear the board, which means mind control tech doesn't seem like it's going to be playable next turn no matter what. Actually, he is not clearing the Cruel Taskmaster. Instead, he's going to deal some damage to the face. Very smart by CullingDash, might actually be anticipating the Boom. Also anticipating that he's not going to do anything with that Cruel Taskmaster, leaving him open to play this mind control tech. It's very smart. Ironically, it does steal. Probably the worst one of the four, but it's still a steal. Hit first to reduce the chance that his big game hunter dies. Only lost one minion there, it's pretty reasonable. And he has a very dominating board. Fortunately for Samuel, he does have the Brawl. That's his out of the situation. Mind Control Tech won the Brawl, but loses the race against the War Axe.
I have no time for games.
CullingDash is not even able to Wrath the cycle here. He could do it on his own Sylvanas, but then he would make himself exceptionally weak to the Death Bite that Samuel just actually picked up. Both players have to start worrying about losing the game, and it looks like CullingDash might lose next turn at this rate. The Grommash is very threatening. And actually, the Ancient of War doesn't look like it saves him. Let's see, if he attacks Wraths the Slime in Ancient of Wars, then he has to use his weapon to proc Execute, which means Grommash will only deal 10 damage. He has the Cruel Taskmaster, obviously, but can't play it along with the Execute, and the Execute's needed. So this is actually pretty awkward for Samuel, it seems. Unless I overlooked something insane, and he actually does have lethal.
I wonder.
What are we going to see him do here? You could even Cruel Big Game Hunter. If you wanted to use the Big Game Hunter already.
I've got the beast in my sleigh.
This does work out on paper really well for CullingDash because he can kill something, then crash his Sylvanas into something and steal the Harrison.
That belongs in a museum.
Fortunately, he has the Harrison himself. Could even swipe and clear the board, but that doesn't seem as good as wrathing and drawing a card. Conserving the swipe, stealing another Harrison. CullingDash manages, it seems, to avoid dying this turn. Sludge Belcher does do a pretty good job contesting these Harrisons. He's going to use the other Execute here. Like, it's still pretty clear that Samuel's favored. The CullingDash has managed to avoid the Grommash lethal for a while. So now all he can really do is play some minions. Swipe hero power on the Sludge doesn't seem very good. Still 2 points off of dying this turn, it seems, but Nefarian can come down and cause some shenanigans. He could even shield Maiden and armor up if he feels threatened by the combo. But that's not very threatening. And his opponent only has 1 card in hand. Simply going to set himself up with lethal with the Grommash. Not going to worry about a potential second big game hunter or something like that. Protected by the taunt, there's actually... Well, I guess that's the way to deal with it, if that actually behaves and hits the Grommash. That really is... CullingDash is 1 out here. We're about to see if this game can be carried by Ragnaros' RNG. It needs to hit the 33% chance on the Grommash. Let's see what happens. Can CullingDash tie the score with this RNG? Well, he can't win this turn, so... I mean, in all likelihood, he might still lose. The Ragnaros needs to be very good over the next few turns, if he actually wants to win. Like, obscenely good. He's thinking if it matters at all to hit. I don't think that it does. I think the only thing left to do is end the turn and pray. That might actually be what he's doing. He might be praying to RNGs as we speak. And it paid off! The prayers to RNGs is answered. So now what happens? Suppose just Nefarian. Let's see what these spells are. Wild Growth and Starfire. Well, Starfire is actually pretty devastating. Just deals 5 damage to the face generally. In this scenario, I'd have to assume. So CullingDash can swipe the Sludge Belcher, hit it with the Shade. Well, no, that wouldn't be good. There's still a slime that would get in the way of the Ragnaros. He could Hero Power and Shade into the Sludge and then swipe the slime, but then he's getting awfully low in life. Oh yeah, this works. I don't know why I said it didn't for a minute. Swipe, use the slime. Obviously, this is better because it keeps the damage off the Shade. More prayers to RNGs. He really needs this hit. Not quite enough with the Starfire yet. The prayers to RNGs weren't strong enough this time. The BM greet. And Samuel is going to go up. Taking a pretty shocking win there, I would say. It's not often that Control Warrior seems so commanding over the mid-range druid the entire match, especially when the mid-range druid saw so much of its ramp. It's gotta feel pretty bad if you are CullingDash there. You can't really ask for much of a better opening, except for probably something better to do on turn 4 than Innervate Nourish for ramp. So Samuel has won with everything except his Warlock. We still don't know what kind of Warlock it is. CullingDash does have some work to do. But we already saw 1 reverse sweep in the last round, so it's completely possible. CullingDash did come prepared with his Golden Warlock. Looks like Samuel's on the typical handlock with the Mountain Giants and Drakes, and CullingDash is on Malagos lock, I think. Well, possibly. I've been known to tech a Molten Giant and Malagos lock occasionally, but could be some weird hybrid between the two that we don't know about yet. The Azure Drakes do lead me to believe it's just typical Malagos lock, though. Which is favored in this matchup. Pretty heavily, actually. More tech Acidic Swampoos and Warlock. I like it. Everyone seems to be doing this now. copious amounts of life tapping to start off the game. Big Game Hunter was a huge draw. Probably runs 2, as we can see by the Abusive Sergeant, which is usually activating Big Game Hunter's effects. No Owl for the Twilight Drake, though. The play here could just be another Imp Gang boss, and then coin out the Emperor next turn, maybe. Of course, he's probably either going to have another Drake or a Mountain Giant to deal with. Samuel actually drew very well with Handlock too, so if there was a game that Handlock can be Malagos Lock, it might be this one. Double Mortal Coil sitting over there waiting for the imps to come out. Alright, well, it is about time that CullingDash saw as a threat of his own, but would have been much better last turn. Obviously, this turn pretty much has to be Big Game Hunter.
I've got the beast in my state.
But the board is relatively even. And CullingDash, with the amount of burst in the deck with Soulfires and other spells, does actually want to get Samuel down to a moderate life total pretty soon. Worth noting, Samuel doesn't actually have Molten Giants yet. Zombie Chow has to be the play there. It just fits in the curve too well. And we see the clutch card, Emperor Thorson, come down. As usual, it looks like it's going to die immediately. But right now, CullingDash is wondering how low he can get Samuel. Because he has some burst damage in his hand. But he doesn't want to die to Molten Giants. If he attacks twice, he could get Molten Gianted and then a 4-drop creature or a spell like a Defender of Argus or a Shadow Flame. Abusive is also fair. On the board, it keeps the Emperor alive, but realistically, it probably still dies to any number of things. At least 3 ways to kill it in Samuel's hand alone. And he does find a Molten Giant. So if CullingDash got too greedy, he could be punished. CullingDash choosing to just develop the board here. No mass kill in Samuel's hand. And a lot of damage sitting in CullingDash's hand. And it could just be the sadist to me, but I want to see this get to the point where someone plays, well, I guess where Samuel plays Draxus and CullingDash has the Acidic Swamp Ooze. Because we've seen the Ooze in like 3 matches so far, and it hasn't actually done anything yet. I think we're overdue for some Ooze action. Dr. Boom, relatively safe. We haven't seen a Big Game Hunter yet. Well, we've seen one Big Game Hunter, that's the point. It's like the second one isn't in his hand. Obviously, it would have almost immediately, like, been considered dead already if we hadn't seen any Big Game Hunters yet. Let's see, how much damage is there actually? With spell power, there's 9, 13. Wait, was this... This could have actually been lethal, I think? If CullingDash hadn't tapped... Well, could he still do it? He could still do it, yeah. If he summons the Ooze to bait out some bombs, attacks with his Twilight Drake... No, I don't think so. Yeah. The Hellfire would actually kill the Azure Drake. Could still be a very good turn for him. He does lose some burst potential. Is he gonna hit? This matters a lot for that Molten Giant. Alright, Molten Giant is WoW. Alright, so Healbot and Molten Giant are both playable this turn. This could actually really put CullingDash out of range to have lethal anytime soon. Samuel just trying to work his mana in the best possible way. He only really has a mana if he wants to Healbot for Molten Argus Healbot, or Molten Healbot Argus would be the correct order in that situation. Could just, interesting choice playing on the big game Hunter. I mean, after there was one for the boom, I probably would have been more inclined to just use the Molten Giant right there, but neither play is bad against what CullingDash has, which is not a whole lot on board. Either one would have died. No follow-up play for the CullingDash, though. Emperor Thorson seems perfectly reasonable now, I would say. The question is whether or not to tap, though. I think you probably do. Well, maybe not with another Healbot, not in sight, but you do have the Siphon Soul to gain some life, and you want to maximize the Emperor. Your opponent hasn't played an Emperor of his own yet, so you can assume you can't die to Malygos this turn. Making the 6/6 is reasonable as well. Finally seen an Implosion, I haven't seen that yet so far. CullingDash actually getting kind of low. Well, in a handful of things that he doesn't really care about too much. He has a backup Healbot in case he discarded the first one. Seemed like a fine discard. Siphon Soul hurts, though. It's also a huge shame that the Acidic Swamp Ooze is gone. I have to think, since this game is drawing on long, that Draxus is going to see play. Could be wrong, but now it just seems like an incredibly safe minion to play. CullingDash still a ways away from closing this out. No dragons for the Blackwing Corruptor. Rolling high on all of these implosions, which is definitely what you want. I just don't think it's that relevant of a result right now. If his hand just had a little bit of action, it might be in his favor, but... I'm actually surprised we don't just see 2 Sludge Belchers here. Is he afraid of Power Overwhelming plus Shadow Flame? Maybe. We do see a dragon. So now we do have some action here. There was no Sludge Belcher played the turn before. Nothing really contesting this board yet. Ancient Watcher gets taunt, Sludge Belcher gets double taunt. Means you have to kill it twice to get rid of it. Kappa.
I wield the power of black.
My shield for Argus.
CullingDash firmly taking hold of this board, though. Molten Giant is a good pickup, but it's not going to be good against that big game hunter. CullingDash could pull this one out. Which, considering the matchup, is likely, but considering the way things have been going, I was thinking Samuel could actually take this. He did draw a lot better over the last few turns. Can't exactly pinpoint where things might have gone wrong. I mean, he does, of course, have Lord Drax in his hand, and it's not going to be countered by an ooze. He's also pretty far from actually dying. So there's time.
I got the beast in my sight.
He might choose not to tap or Drake just to keep his life. Well, he has 2 anti-heal bots. He's not too worried about fatigue. He hasn't seen Malagos yet, so obviously that's one of his last 3 cards. I'm pretty sure there's another Soulfire. Some people only run 1, but there's probably another Soulfire. So the last 2 cards might in fact be Malagos Soulfire, which is pretty hilarious. I'm pretty sure it was CullingDash who had the Force Nature on the bottom of his deck. Does not want to draw an extra card here. Perfectly understandable. Doesn't look like... Well, I guess... I don't know. There aren't too many good ways that Samuel can live here. I think he just has to Owl Shadow Flame, honestly.
So many possibilities.
It's really not that good. But Jiraxis would make him dead on board. Earth and Ring Farseer. So if the last card is a Malagos, he might only run 1 Soulfire, or I just miscounted and he used them both. Part of me really wishes Samuel was the kind of guy to run Leroy Jenkins and Faces Manipulator here. Just to punish CullingDash for not playing the heal bot or healing his own face with the Earthen. He just really wanted to keep his board alive. And I respect that. I do, but there are like certain cards that could punish that. Either way, CullingDash is going to capitalize on this being a good matchup after a very long and grindy game and take a game here. So let's see, CullingDash still has to live, still has to win with his Warrior and Druid. He has to do it all against Warlock. Depending on the type of Warrior, it's possible. I would say unlikely. We're about to see what matchup exactly it is right now.
Your soul shall be mine. Victory!
Okay, it's Control Warrior versus Handlock, which means two things. The first of which is that we're going to be here a while. The second is that while Samuel is pretty heavily favored, I would say it's not... I think it's better that CullingDash has shield slams. There's an argument that Patron is actually pretty good against Handlock sometimes because of its burst potential. It's kind of like the way Oil Rogue's good against Handlock, but I would rather be sitting behind the deck with shield slams as well as executes. And this isn't a bad hand, just because of execute. Despite for future combos. Of course, you have to compare it to Samuel's hand, which is pretty great, with 2 Twilight Drakes already. Life tapping and armoring up. Typical of these two decks. Pretty boring early game. Probably going to see a coin into Drake here, I'd assume. Maybe just an Ancient Watcher if he wants to conserve it. This does give CullingDash extra time to deal with it, though. Now he has a way to proc the execute on board. He had the War Axe either way, but that would have taken a lot of his armor down and prevented him from shield slamming after that. Now what CullingDash can do is proc the execute, or even now he has shield block, so it doesn't matter, he can choose whichever way he wants. But if he did choose to use execute now, he'd be able to shield slam another Twilight Drake on the following turn. So I wonder which removal spell will be used this turn. Using Shield Slam while you can, it's always nice before you lose armor, but he has a shield block, so he's not really worried about that. But you don't always have a way to proc execute either, even if you have a Despite in your hand. He also might want to play the Despite, so he can kill the Ancient Watcher next turn. This seems like the play that makes the most sense. Allows him to Despite the Ancient Watcher next turn. Still be able to Shield Slam a Giant if he keeps some armor. He can do that first with Shield Block, Shield Slam. Looks like the plan. CullingDash can Shield Block, Shield Slam the Drake, attack the Ancient Watcher, and either equip his other weapon if he's not afraid of Ooze or Harrison. Simply, or I'll just miscount the mana. It's also perfectly fair. He doesn't even want to kill the Ancient Watcher. That's fine. Not afraid of the Owl. But Owl's gonna happen. I mean, to be fair, it's not even that big of an Owl. It just takes away Armorsmith, and then Samuel doesn't even want to make that play because the Owl will just simply die as well. It's a lot worse for him than if just the Ancient Watcher died, even though Armorsmith is gone. It's kind of a inconsequential card to keep alive or kill in this matchup.
Possibilities.
I do really like the Ysera in the Control Warrior deck, though. I think it might prove to give a slight edge with the Handlock on the other side. We're seeing a lot of Siphon Soul today. But besides that, Ysera is very hard to kill. And just being able to draw extra cards without actually fatiguing yourself is very important in these kind of grindy matchups. Especially when Ysera's Awakened is obviously so overpowered as a card. I mean, there have been worse brawls in history, but still not sure that he needs to. If he simply Death Spites, uses his last weapon charge, he doesn't kill the Ancient Watcher or the Slime. Then if he did play the Shield Maiden, he would die to those two cards. Of course, brawling a field like this is much worse than brawling a field of Molten Giants that were played for free, or bots, etc. And honestly, it still doesn't seem like a good brawl unless Samuel decides to go full face here. Alright, now it seems like a good brawl. If it was just brawl against your own clear board and your opponent's Dr. Boom and Boombots, it wouldn't be good, but Samuel made the, I guess, kind of questionable decision to not kill the Shield Maiden. Not really playing around the brawl. Yeah, I think it's an easy brawl here. We don't really want to Ragnaros and pray. Not against this board. Weakest minion lives. I guess Boombots are technically weaker, but they're better. Unfortunately for CullingDash, he really wanted this Ysera next turn, but it is just going to die to the Siphon Soul if that's the case. He could probably Ragnaros 50-50 here. I think that might actually be the best bet. He could shield block into Prey for a shield slam, but Ragnaros 50-50 seems much more, it's just a better payoff. Alright, so this actually worked out very well for CullingDash. And he's probably going to get Siphon Souled, but that means the Ysera will more than likely generate at least a couple Dream cards.
I have no time for games.
Or I guess since he just picked up Sylvanas. What was last turn? Ooh, double Brawl. Alright, so now CullingDash is in a very awkward position. He doesn't really want to play Ysera and guaranteed lose one of them. Because if it's Ysera, it's just devastating. At least Ragnaros is more easily killed.
No.
Shield block into what is the question. Not really sure what he wants to be drawing here. Depends on if he runs a silence. Well, that's not a silence, but it could help him actually win. He could, like, Fiery War Axe the face, armor up, pray Ragnaros hits the face, and that his opponent doesn't heal or taunt anything up, and then try to Grom Cruel Taskmaster for game. Not too in love with the weapon and not using it. Your opponent's pretty high. And we've seen a lot of weapon hate. Harrison Jones against a 2 durability weapon is just brutal. Samuel keeping himself well out of range of anything. CullingDash is probably just going to kill the anti-heal bot here, and I think he's just going to drop Ysera. I mean, without Siphon Soul, it wouldn't be that bad of a play at all. Nightmare is not... Well, right now it's not what he wants, obviously, but if he can get to a point where he can Grommash Cruel Nightmare... Like, right now Samuel27 is out of range of pretty much anything, but he's not going to play around Nightmare, I don't think.
That was a mistake.
So unfortunately, I think Samuel just overdrew. Well, maybe not. I don't know why. Was it just that he could have Siphon Souled after he tapped? I guess that was also a mistake, but it wasn't that horrible. Siphon Soul still seems like the best play in the deck against Ysera. 3-cost Mountain Giant's very good. Hellfire seems pretty good. Damages his own Mountain Giant, which isn't great, but it's important to get that out there just so he could try to make it so the Ragnaros lived. It's better that both things take damage than one thing dies and one thing lives, I think. You've already seen Execute, so it's not a huge deal. Sylvanas Brawl, if only CullingDash had Emperor before and got the Brawl down to 4. Actually, the CullingDash is only 2 off of lethal. If he had enough mana to play both Cruel Taskmasters and Grom with Nightmare and the weapon, that'd be something. Unfortunately, this is not Patron Warrior, where the deck can just fabricate 22 points of damage out of thin air. And that's a little bit too much. And I don't know, not seeing an actual way that CullingDash can survive. Not with the Hellfire in his opponent's hand. So I think Samuel's gonna take this one. Might reveal the Nightmare here. Not even. Alright, so we are going to see the Hellfire come down, or another similar piece of removal. Samuel's going to assert his dominance as the handlock player against a similar control deck. And take the match 3-1. Alright, Samuel moves on, and we'll be back to follow him in the tournament now. Since we moved on to this match, we're going to see him against the winner of some other match soon in the round of 8. Stay tuned, guys.